Admiral Chen paced the command center as tactical displays showed the Khazari scout ships methodically mapping Earth's orbital defenses. The room hummed with tense activity, officers speaking in hushed tones as they monitored the alien vessel's movements. "They're scanning our satellite network," Lieutenant Rivera reported, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Systematic grid pattern, just like they did at Proxima before taking out the communication relays." Chen nodded grimly. "But we're not Proxima. Activate Protocol Hydra." Across Earth's orbit, thousands of dormant microsatellites suddenly changed their emission signatures, creating a chaotic web of conflicting data. The Khazari scanners would detect what appeared to be critical communication nodes, but most were elaborate decoys. The Khazari conquered the Centauri system in 6 hours because they found and destroyed 3 central command hubs. Chen explained to the United Earth Defense Council on the main screen. "We don't have central hubs to target. Every nation, every orbital platform has autonomous defense capabilities." General Williams frowned. "That wasn't by design, Admiral. That was because we never managed to agree on a unified defense system. And now our political stubbornness might save our species," Chen replied. Outside the Singapore arcology, civilians watched the skies as evacuation transports streamed toward underground shelters. 8-year-old Min Lin clutched her father's hand, pointing at strange lights flickering between the stars. "Are those shooting stars, Dad?" He squeezed her hand. "No, sweetheart. Those are our ships going to fight." Aboard the U.S. Defiant, Commander Sarah Takahashi briefed her nervous fighter pilots. Most had never seen combat outside of simulations, and none had faced anything like the Khazari. "Their ships move in perfect formation," she explained, showing footage intercepted from the Proxima colony's final transmissions. "They expect us to follow standard tactical response patterns. So we won't. Each squadron has different orders. Squadron Blue will execute chaotic approach vectors. Squadron Red will target their communication nodes instead of weapons. Squadron Gold will mimic retreat, then circle back in attack formation." A young pilot raised his hand. "Commander, these maneuvers contradict everything in the tactical manual." Takahashi nodded. "Exactly. The Khazari have studied our manuals. They haven't studied our capacity for strategic insanity." Deep within No Raid's Enhanced Quantum Computing Center, Dr. Elias Mbeki reviewed the limited data on Khazari biology. The aliens appeared to share consciousness across multiple bodies, operating with hive mind precision. "Their neural architecture suggests they process information collectively," he told his research team. "No individual decision-making. Everything filtered through consensus algorithms." His colleague, Dr. Yamamoto, looked up from her calculations. "So they're stronger together, but potentially vulnerable to confusion when their communication is disrupted." "That's my hypothesis," Mbeki confirmed. "And it might explain why they're hesitating. Their algorithm probably says Earth should have a central defense structure to target, but they can't find one." As the first Khazari destroyer entered Earth orbit, Admiral Chen issued her final orders to the scattered defense fleet. "Don't coordinate your attacks. That's what they expect. Hit them from all sides, following your individual commander's orders. Let's show them what happens when they pick a fight with the most stubbornly disorganized species in the galaxy." The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weakness, its inability to fully unite, was paradoxically becoming its most unexpected strength. Colonel Maya Jackson ducked as another blast hit nearby, showering her team with debris. The Khazari ground forces advanced through Seattle's ruins with mechanical precision, their synchronized movements creating an almost hypnotic pattern of destruction. "Status on the disruptors," she whispered into her comm unit. 90 seconds to full charge," replied Lieutenant Garcia from his position 3 blocks east. Mining converters weren't made for this kind of power output. Jackson surveyed the alien formation through her tactical visor. The Khazari moved like a single organism, each soldier exactly 4.7 meters from its neighbors, their weapons sweeping in perfect arcs. The pattern was beautiful, in its terrible efficiency. Just like Dr. Reynolds said, Jackson muttered, perfect calculation, zero improvisation. She signaled her scattered forces, a mix of military personnel and civilian volunteers armed with modified construction equipment. Prepare for scatter protocol on my mark. Remember, unpredictable movements only. When the Khazari reached the predetermined coordinates, Jackson gave the signal. Now, 23 disruptors activated simultaneously, sending seismic waves through Seattle's underground utility tunnels. The carefully calculated frequencies caused the ground to fracture in completely random patterns. What had been solid ground beneath the Khazari formation suddenly became a chaotic patchwork of collapsing sections. The effect on the alien force was immediate and stunning. Their perfect formation shattered as individual units struggled to adapt to terrain that defied prediction. Some fired wildly, others froze in place as their collective decision-making process overloaded with contradictory data. Move in, Jackson ordered, leading her team through pre-mapped safe zones in the fragmenting terrain. Meanwhile, at the Colorado Research Facility, Dr. Sophia Reynolds watched the captured Khazari drone attempt to navigate the simple maze for the 17th time. The tall, silvery being moved with fluid grace, but stopped at each junction, its compound eyes pulsing with light as it calculated all possible outcomes. It's still taking the optimal path every time, noted her assistant. Yes, but look at the time delay. Reynolds pointed to the neural activity readout. It's considering every variable before moving. Supremely efficient in stable conditions, but vulnerable when faced with rapid changes requiring instant decisions, finished General Okonkwo, who had been observing silently from the doorway. Reynolds nodded. They're not just connected, they're consensus-driven. Each action must be collectively approved by their hive processing. In predictable environments, this makes them unstoppable. In chaotic ones, it creates decision lag, the general said, a slow smile spreading across his face. That's why Jackson's unorthodox tactics are working. Exactly, and I think we can exploit this further. Reynolds pulled up a simulation on her tablet. If we deliberately feed their observation systems conflicting data, military units that appear to retreat but actually advance, weapons that register as non-threatening until activated, we can induce a state similar to cognitive dissonance in their collective consciousness. Back in Seattle, Jackson's forces had surrounded the disoriented Khazari unit. The aliens attempted to regroup, their movements becoming more coordinated as they established a new formation. But Jackson had anticipated this. Second wave. Now, she ordered. The buildings around the aliens, specifically left standing by previous Khazari attacks because they matched non-critical infrastructure profiles in the aliens' targeting algorithm, suddenly collapsed inward, their support structures weakened by precision charges. The Khazari, caught in another unpredictable change, suffered massive losses. As the dust settled, Jackson received an encrypted transmission from Admiral Chen. Seattle strategy successful. Implementing worldwide. The Khazari Supreme Command has ordered temporary withdrawal to regroup. Humanity had won its first victory, not through superior technology or numbers, but through strategic unpredictability that the mathematically perfect Khazari simply couldn't process. Zhou Chen added final touches to her latest mural on the side of a partially collapsed apartment building in Hong Kong. The massive painting depicted a towering Khazari warrior slipping on a banana peel, arms flailing comically as its perfect balance failed. She stepped back to admire her work as a small crowd gathered, pointing and, remarkably, laughing. "You could be arrested for that," said a voice behind her. Zhou turned to see a public safety officer watching her with an unreadable expression. "For what?" "Defacing a building that's scheduled for demolition anyway," she challenged. The officer's stern face suddenly broke into a grin. "No, for making me laugh so hard I nearly choked on my coffee this morning when I saw your last one." He nodded toward another building where she painted a Khazari trying to understand a human joke, question marks floating above its head. Halfway across the world, Late-night show host Marcus Rivera adjusted his tie before the camera's red light blinked on. Despite government evacuation orders, his New York studio remained operational, broadcasting to whatever portions of the global network still functioned. Good evening, Earth. And any Khazari tuning in, though I hear their laugh track still needs work. The small audience chuckled. Breaking news. Alien invaders are shocked to discover humans aren't following their how-to-be-conquered handbook. Apparently, we're the only species that didn't read the terms and conditions before signing up for annihilation. The humor was dark, but it spread faster than the Khazari could track it. Underground bunkers held viewing parties for invasion roast comedy specials. Soldiers decorated their weapons with cartoon aliens. Children played humans versus Khazari in shelter playgrounds, always scripting endings where humans found creative ways to win. In their orbiting command ship, the Khazari Supreme Coordinator reviewed the psychological warfare results with increasing frustration. The holographic display showed human social media activity. Humor categories up 348%, Defiance-themed content up 573%. This response pattern contradicts all previous conquest data. It communicated to the collective. Species 4822 Earth continues to exhibit psychological resilience despite optimal terror deployment. The analysis unit suggested an enhanced approach. Targeting analysis indicates human creativity centers are producing counterproductive responses to standard fear induction. Recommend targeting entertainment infrastructure to eliminate humor production. The decision rippled through the collective consciousness, and within hours, Khazari strike forces descended on media centers, theaters, and digital entertainment hubs worldwide. In London, Raj Patel barely noticed the explosions as he hunched over his makeshift workstation in an abandoned underground station. The 22-year-old programming prodigy had been analyzing intercepted Khazari communications for weeks, isolating patterns in their transmission protocols. "There it is again," he murmured, pointing to a rhythmic spike in the data stream. His small team of fellow hackers gathered around his screen. Every 6.2 seconds, all Khazari units sync their tactical information through these compression bursts. "So what?" asked Devi, a network security specialist. "We already know they share information." "It's not just sharing, it's synchronizing," Raj explained, excitement building in his voice. "Their entire neural network depends on perfect data alignment. If we could introduce errors into that synchronization." A distant explosion rocked the tunnel as a Khazari strike hit a broadcast center above them. Dust filtered down from the ceiling. "They're targeting entertainment centers," someone said, checking emergency broadcasts. Raj smiled grimly. "They think they're attacking our morale by going after our jokes and stories. They still don't understand. Human creativity isn't centralized. It can't be bombed or destroyed." He turned back to his code. "And now they've given me exactly what I needed. A predictable response pattern I can use to build my disruption algorithm." While the Khazari methodically destroyed Earth's entertainment infrastructure, they remained oblivious to the fact that their actions were becoming increasingly predictable to the very humans they sought to control. Zhou Chen added final touches to her latest mural on the side of a partially collapsed apartment building in Hong Kong. The massive painting depicted a towering Khazari warrior slipping on a banana peel, arms flailing comically as its perfect balance failed. She stepped back to admire her work as a small crowd gathered, pointing and, remarkably, laughing. "You could be arrested for that," said a voice behind her. Zhou turned to see a public safety officer watching her with an unreadable expression. "For what?" "Defacing a building that's scheduled for demolition anyway," she challenged. The officer's stern face suddenly broke into a grin. "No, for making me laugh so hard I nearly choked on my coffee this morning when I saw your last one." He nodded toward another building where she'd painted a Khazari trying to understand a human joke, question marks floating above its head. Halfway across the world, late-night show host Marcus Rivera adjusted his tie before the camera's red light blinked on. Despite government evacuation orders, his New York studio remained operational, broadcasting to whatever portions of the global network still functioned. Good evening, Earth. And any Khazari tuning in, though I hear their laugh track still needs work. The small audience chuckled. Breaking news. Alien invaders are shocked to discover humans aren't following their How to Be Conquered handbook. Apparently, we're the only species that didn't read the terms and conditions before signing up for annihilation. The humor was dark, but it spread faster than the Khazari could track it. Underground bunkers held viewing parties for invasion roast comedy specials. Soldiers decorated their weapons with cartoon aliens. Children played humans versus Khazari in shelter playgrounds, always scripting endings where humans found creative ways to win. In their orbiting command ship, the Khazari Supreme Coordinator reviewed the psychological warfare results with increasing frustration. The holographic display showed human social media activity. Humor categories up 348%, Defiance-themed content up 573%. This response pattern contradicts all previous conquest data. It communicated to the collective. Species 4822 Earth continues to exhibit psychological resilience despite optimal terror deployment. The analysis unit suggested an enhanced approach. Targeting analysis indicates human creativity centers are producing counterproductive responses to standard fear induction. Recommend targeting entertainment infrastructure to eliminate humor production. The decision rippled through the collective consciousness, and within hours, Khazari strike forces descended on media centers, theaters, and digital entertainment hubs worldwide. In London, Raj Patel barely noticed the explosions as he hunched over his makeshift workstation in an abandoned underground station. The 22-year-old programming prodigy had been analyzing intercepted Khazari communications for weeks, isolating patterns in their transmission protocols. "There it is again," he murmured, pointing to a rhythmic spike in the data stream. His small team of fellow hackers gathered around his screen. Every 6.2 seconds, all Khazari units sync their tactical information through these compression bursts. "So what?" asked Devi, a network security specialist. "We already know they share information. It's not just sharing, it's synchronizing," Raj explained, excitement building in his voice. "Their entire neural network depends on perfect data alignment. If we could introduce errors into that synchronization." A distant explosion rocked the tunnel as a Khazari strike hit a broadcast center above them. Dust filtered down from the ceiling. "They're targeting entertainment centers," someone said, checking emergency broadcasts. Raj smiled grimly. "They think they're attacking our morale by going after our jokes and stories. They still don't understand. Human creativity isn't centralized. It can't be bombed or destroyed." He turned back to his code. "And now they've given me exactly what I needed. A predictable response pattern I can use to build my disruption algorithm." While the Khazari methodically destroyed Earth's entertainment infrastructure, they remained oblivious to the fact that their actions were becoming increasingly predictable to the very humans they sought to control. Dr. Marcus Wong pushed his glasses up his nose as he supervised the conversion of his theoretical quantum disruptor into a physical weapon. Around him, the underground facility beneath Alberta's Rocky Mountains hummed with frantic activity. Scientists who would normally compete for grants and publications now worked side by side, pooling knowledge without concern for credit. "The field harmonics are still unstable beyond 60 seconds, reported Dr. Anya Petrov, monitoring a simulation of the disruptor's effects on a virtual Khazari shield. "We need more power to sustain the quantum interference pattern." Wong nodded, staring at the equations floating in the holographic display. "What if we modulate the field to pulse instead of maintaining continuous output?" The Khazari shields recalibrate at predictable intervals. If we time the pulses to hit during their recalibration windows. Before Petrov could answer, an excited shout came from across the lab. A young researcher named Adebayo waved them over to his station. "Look at this," he said, pulling up data from a recent Khazari attack. "I've been studying their shield frequency patterns, and there's something strange. They adjust their harmonics precisely every 3.8 seconds, but there's a 0.2-second vulnerability during the transition. Wang's eyes widened. That's our window. Can you predict the exact timing? Already have. Adebayo grinned, showing a simulation where targeted energy bursts slipped through the momentary gaps in the alien shields. The problem is, our current weapons can't cycle fast enough to hit those windows consistently. Mine can, Wang said quietly. The quantum disruptor doesn't just attack their shields. It temporarily distorts the underlying space-time fabric they're generating the shields within. 12 hours later, a prototype disruptor was loaded onto a stealth drone for testing against a captured Khazari fighter being held in a secure facility in Australia's outback. Wang, Petrov, and Adebayo watched anxiously via secure feed as the drone approached the alien vessel. Activating disruptor in 3, 2, 1, announced the test controller. A barely visible ripple emanated from the drone, washing over the Khazari ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a mirage dissolving, the fighter's iridescent shield flickered and collapsed completely. It worked, Petrov exclaimed, her voice hushed with disbelief. Wang was already sending the results to the Global Defense Innovation Network. Within minutes, scientists across the planet began adapting his designs for different applications. A team in Japan proposed mounting smaller versions on fighter craft. Engineers in Brazil suggested scaling it up for installation on orbital platforms. A 16-year-old in Kenya sent in calculations for a handheld version that infantry could use against Khazari ground forces. The Khazari intelligence analyzers detected the sudden spike in encrypted communications and the changing patterns in human research facilities. Something had shifted. Despite their limited understanding of human behavior, one thing became clear to the collective consciousness. The humans were adapting too quickly. In the vast command vessel orbiting Jupiter, the Khazari Supreme Coordinator made an unprecedented decision. According to all conquest protocols, Earth should still be in the early stages of subjugation. The deployment of their world killer fleet wasn't scheduled until all resistance had been methodically dismantled. But these humans defied every pattern. Their chaotic innovation was accelerating rather than diminishing under pressure. Bypass standard conquest sequence, the coordinator commanded. Deploy the world killer fleet immediately. Across the solar system, massive Khazari vessels began to move, their planet-destroying weapons charging as they set course for Earth. The final phase of invasion had begun far ahead of schedule, a testament to how thoroughly humanity had disrupted the invaders' perfect plan. Commander Diana Taylor moved through the nearly deserted corridors of Luna Base, the massive facility eerily silent after the evacuation of its 2 million inhabitants. Only her skeleton crew of 47 volunteers remained, each chosen for their expertise and, more importantly, their willingness to face what might be a one-way mission. "Status report," she requested, entering the Central Operations Dome, where the dimensional inverter had been installed. The massive device, cobbled together from experimental technology and repurposed mining equipment, dominated the chamber. "Calibration at 87%, reported Dr. Kazuo Tanaka, not looking up from his console. The physicist had designed much of the inverter based on Dr. Wang's theories. The gravitational alignment is still fluctuating. We need at least 95% stability for the effect to propagate properly." Taylor checked the tactical display. The Khazari World Killer Fleet was approaching lunar orbit, right on schedule. Admiral Chen's intelligence team had correctly predicted the aliens would target Luna Base first, believing it housed Earth's primary defense research facilities. "How much time do we need?" she asked, maintaining the calm tone that had earned her the reputation as the ice commander during the Mars colony crisis. 30 minutes minimum, Tanaka responded, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Maybe 25 if we push the tolerances into the red zone." Taylor nodded. "The Khazari will be in optimal position in 18 minutes. The scientist finally looked up, his face pale. "That's problematic." "Then we give them a reason to wait," Taylor said. She opened a communication channel to the small fleet of unmanned drones hidden in Luna's shadow. Initiate Operation Rabbit. Across the lunar surface, defense turrets activated, firing projectiles calculated to miss the approaching Khazari vessels by precise margins. Simultaneously, the drones emerged from hiding, broadcasting energy signatures mimicking Earth's most advanced weapon systems. The Khazari fleet responded predictably, slowing their approach to analyze this unexpected resistance. Their battle computers required precise assessment before committing their valuable world killers to engagement range. "They're taking the bait," reported Lieutenant Diaz from the sensor station. "Their advance has slowed to analysis speed. New estimated time to optimal position, 27 minutes. Taylor allowed herself a small smile. "Dr. Tanaka, you have your time." In the adjacent chamber, engineering specialist Jin Wei supervised the final adjustments to the evacuation shuttles, their only chance of escape after triggering the inverter. The small vessels had been modified with experimental stealth technology that might, just might, allow them to slip past the Khazari during the chaos of the gravitational event. "Inverter calibration at 92%, Tanaka announced. "Stability holding." On the tactical display, the massive Khazari world killers moved into a perfect geometric formation around Luna, positioning themselves to neutralize the perceived threat with maximum efficiency. Their predictable tactical doctrine was, once again, being used against them. "They're deploying energy collectors," Diaz reported. "Weapons charging." Taylor took a deep breath. Everything depended on precise timing. "Evacuation teams to stations. Final countdown begins when we reach 95% calibration." Warning alarms flashed as the first Khazari energy signatures spiked, indicating imminent attack. Taylor watched the calibration meter crawl upward. 93%. 94. Multiple targeting locks. Diaz called out. "They're firing." The lunar surface shuddered as the first Khazari strikes hit defensive decoys kilometers away. 95%, Tanaka announced. "Initiate countdown," Taylor ordered. 60 seconds to inverter activation. All personnel to evacuation stations. As her crew rushed to their assigned shuttles, Taylor remained at the central control panel. Someone would need to ensure the inverter activated properly, adjusting for any last-second fluctuations. They all knew the evacuation plan allowed for 45 seconds to reach the shuttles, and the countdown was already at 55. Taylor had never mentioned this small detail during the mission briefing. Some commands came with unspoken sacrifices. Dr. Amara Jackson stood before the assembled alien representatives in the repurposed No-80 bunker deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. 17 distinct species occupied the chamber, their biology as varied as their cultures. The silver-skinned Mithrai ambassador towered over the insectoid Volaran delegates, while the gaseous Ixari required special containment fields to maintain their cohesion in Earth's atmosphere. "Our translators are functioning at 83% accuracy," Amara explained, adjusting the neural interface she'd developed to bridge the vast communication gaps. "But language is more than words. To truly unite against the Khazari, we must share understanding." The Mithrai ambassador's voice resonated through the chamber. "Understanding comes from shared experience. We have all experienced Khazari predation. Is this not enough?" "Experience without action led us nowhere," chittered the Volaran Prime. "For centuries we have hidden, watching our worlds die. The humans fight openly. This is unfamiliar to us." Amara nodded, sensing the heart of the resistance. "You fear standing against the destroyers because you've seen only defeat. Let me show you something else." She activated the holographic display, showing footage from the recent lunar battle. The Khazari world killer fleet contracting in the gravity well, their perfect formation disintegrating. "This was not just a victory," she explained. "It was proof the Khazari can be confused, disrupted, defeated, not through superior technology, but through strategies they cannot comprehend." The Ixari representative's containment field pulsed with deepening colors. Your species lacks our temporal perception, yet you created a weapon that distorts space-time itself. This contradicts our understanding of human capabilities." "That's exactly my point," Amara said, leaning forward. "Every species here possesses knowledge and abilities the Khazari cannot predict when combined with others. Alone, we remain prey. Together, we become something new, something they've never encountered." She uploaded her latest translation algorithm, feeling the neural interface warm against her temples as it processed the diverse neurological patterns of each species. The algorithm was her life's work, designed to translate not just words but underlying concepts across radically different minds. The Khazari believe themselves invincible because they've never faced united resistance. She continued, her words now resonating in the native thought patterns of each alien present. "They expect us to behave as separate species with predictable responses. But together, we become unpredictable." The chamber fell silent as her words penetrated centuries of ingrained fear. The Mithrai ambassador finally spoke, silver skin reflecting the room's blue lighting. "Your lunar trap succeeded because the Khazari could not imagine a prey species sacrificing its own celestial body as bait. What other strategies might we devise that exist beyond their conceptual framework?" The Valeran Prime's antennae quivered with growing excitement. "Our gravity manipulation technology was developed for mining, but combined with human tactical unpredictability. And our biological adaptations could enhance human defensive systems," added the Ixari, their gaseous forms swirling faster. As the aliens began exchanging technologies and capabilities, Admiral Chen watched from the observation deck with Colonel Jackson. "Your daughter did it," Chen said quietly. "The first true interspecies alliance in galactic history." Jackson nodded, pride evident in her eyes. The Khazari spent millennia ensuring species remained isolated, unable to combine their knowledge. They never anticipated a species like ours that thrives on diversity. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts. Long-range sensors had detected the approach of the Khazari planet Cleaver, a weapon of such devastating power that it had ended entire civilizations with a single deployment. "Time to see if this alliance can withstand its first real test," Chen said grimly, watching the alien representatives below as they continued their rapid exchange of ideas and technologies. The planet Cleaver loomed in Earth's sky, visible even in daylight as a dark geometric shape gradually unfolding its energy collection arrays. In command centers across the globe, desperate preparations continued despite calculation after calculation showing the same result. Conventional defenses could not stop a weapon of this magnitude. In the Himalayan research bunker, Dr. Sophia Reynolds stared at the neural patterns displayed on her lab's central hologram. Beside her, two Mithrai scientists manipulated the data with graceful, elongated fingers. "There," said the elder Mithrai, Sentinel Talon, pointing to a recurring pattern in the captured Khazari neural signals. "The synchronization pulse occurs at precisely 6.2-second intervals, as your Raj Patel discovered. But look deeper." Reynolds adjusted the analysis parameters, revealing subtle subpatterns within the main signal. "It's a multi-layered synchronization. The primary signal coordinates tactical decisions, but these secondary patterns, they maintain hierarchical consciousness distribution," completed the younger Mithrai. "Each Khazari unit receives a specific consciousness allocation based on its role. Command units receive priority processing resources." Reynolds' eyes widened. "So disrupting the synchronization wouldn't just confuse their communications. It could fracture their entire collective consciousness." "Potentially," Talon cautioned. "But the disruption would need to strike precisely as the hierarchy is being reassigned, during their consciousness redistribution phase." "Which occurs when?" Reynolds asked. "When they prepare their most significant weapons systems," Talon replied. "Like now with the planet Cleaver." Across the globe in a London underground station, Raj Patel received Reynolds' urgent transmission. The young programmer had been refining his disruptive algorithm for weeks, but this new information changed everything. "The entire Khazari fleet doesn't just communicate. It shares a single distributed consciousness. he explained to his team. And right now, that consciousness is focusing its resources on coordinating the planet cleaver. Can your algorithm target that specifically? Asked Devi, watching as Raj rapidly modified his code. If I can access enough broadcast power, he replied, fingers flying across his interface. We need to hit their entire command network simultaneously, precisely as they initiate the firing sequence. Admiral Chen, receiving updates from both teams, made her decision. Get Patel access to every transmission array we have left. All Allied ships, prepare to attack the moment. And I mean the exact moment. The disruption hits. From orbit, the Khazari planet cleaver completed its deployment sequence. Energy began flowing through its massive collection arrays, building toward a discharge powerful enough to shatter Earth's crust. The weapon had never failed in its long history of planetary destruction. Inside the weapon's control nexus, the Khazari Supreme Coordinator directed more consciousness resources to the firing sequence, temporarily reducing allocations to defensive systems. This standard procedure had worked flawlessly across thousands of conquered worlds. Energy accumulation at 87%, reported the weapon systems. Firing sequence initiating. Raj Patel received the alert from Earth's monitoring systems. Now, he shouted, executing his disruption algorithm. Across the planet, every remaining communications array, augmented by Volderan gravity technology and Ixari signal amplifiers, broadcast the precisely calibrated disruption signal. The algorithm didn't attempt to overwhelm the Khazari network with brute force. Instead, it introduced subtle errors into their consciousness redistribution protocol, creating cascading contradictions in their shared thinking process. Aboard the planet cleaver, the Supreme Coordinator experienced something no Khazari had ever known: cognitive fragmentation. The perfect unity of the collective consciousness splintered as conflicting commands propagated through the network. Lesser units received command-level consciousness allocations, while command units found themselves operating with minimal resources. The planet cleaver's targeting system, suddenly receiving contradictory coordinates from hundreds of confused sources, adjusted its firing solution in the final millisecond of charging. The weapon fired, not at Earth, but through the heart of the Khazari fleet itself.